The Rothschilds used Wolf to manipulate the German people into a fervor for war. From around this time, the Rothschilds are rarely reported in the media because they own the media. In 1916, on June 4th, Ashkenazi Jew Louis Dernbitz Brandeis is appointed to the Supreme Court of the United States by President Wilson as per his agreed blackmail payment to Samuel Untermyer some 3 years earlier. Justice Brandeis is also the elected leader of the Executive Committee for Zionist Affairs, a position he has held since 1914. In the middle of World War I, Germany was winning the war as they were being financed by the Rothschilds to a greater extent than France, Italy, and England, because the Rothschilds did not want to support the Tsar in Russia, and of course Russia was on the same side as France, Italy, and England. Then a significant event occurred. Germany, although they were winning the war and not one foreign soldier had set foot on their soil, offered armistice to Britain with no requirement of reparations. The Rothschilds were anxious to make sure this didn't happen, as they were expecting to make far more money off this war. So they played another card they had up their sleeve. While the British were considering Germany's offer, Rothschild agent Louis Brandeis sends a Zionist delegation from America to Britain to promise to bring America into the war on the side of the British, provided the British agreed to give the land of Palestine to the Rothschilds. The Rothschilds wanted Palestine for the following reasons. They had great business interests in the Far East and desired their own state in that area along with their own military, which they could use as an aggressor to any state that threatened those interests. Somehow they missed their homeland by about 800 miles in Georgia. The British subsequently agreed to the deal for Palestine, and the Zionists in London contact their counterparts in America and inform them of this fact. Suddenly all the major newspapers in America that up to that point had been pro-German turned on Germany, running propaganda pieces such as German soldiers were killing Red Cross nurses, German soldiers were cutting off babies' hands, etc., in order to manipulate the American public against the Germans. Absolutely none of these claims were true at all. This same year, President Woodrow Wilson ran a re-election campaign under the slogan, "Re-elect the man who will keep your sons out of the war." On December 12th, Germany and her allies offer peace terms to end the war. In 1917, as a result of Germany's offer of peace, the Rothschild war machine goes into overdrive in America, spreading propaganda which leads President Wilson, under the instructions of the American Zionist leader and Supreme Court Justice Louis Dernbitz Brandeis, reneging on his promise to the electorate and taking America into the First World War on April 6th. What a pusillanimous piece of work that guy was, huh? As per the Rothschild Zionist promise to the British to take America into the war, they decide they want something in writing from the British to prove that they will uphold their side of the bargain. The British Foreign Secretary Arthur James Balfour therefore drafts a letter which is commonly known as the Balfour Declaration. England had no right to write this declaration. Just a note here, these people had no ownership of that land of Palestine. The letter states, from the Foreign Office, November 2nd, 1917, "Dear Lord Rothschild, I have much pleasure in conveying to you on behalf of His Majesty's Government the following declaration of sympathy with Jewish Zionist aspirations, which has been submitted to and approved by the Cabinet. His Majesty's Government view with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people, and will use their best endeavors to facilitate the achievement of this object, and being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of the existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine, or the right and political status enjoyed by Jews in any other country. I should be grateful if you would bring this declaration to the knowledge of the Zionist Federation. Yours sincerely, Arthur James Balfour. The Rothschilds order the execution by the Bolsheviks they control, and the murder of Tsar Nicholas II and his entire family in Russia. Even though the Tsar had already abdicated on March 2nd. This is both to get control of the country and an act of revenge for Tsar Alexander I's blocking their world government plan in 1815 at the Congress of Vienna, and Tsar Alexander II siding with President Abraham Lincoln in 1864. It is extremely important for them to slaughter the entire family, including women and children, in order to make good on the promise to do so made by Nathan Mayer Rothschild in 1815. It is designed to show the world what happens if you ever attempt to cross the Rothschilds. U.S. Congressman Oscar Callaway informs Congress that J.P. Morgan is a Rothschild front and has taken control of the American media industry. He states in March 1915, the J.P. Morgan interests, the steel, shipbuilding, and powder interest, and their subsidiary organizations got together 12 men high up in the newspaper world and employed them to select the most influential newspapers in the United States, and sufficient number of them to control generally the policy of the daily press. They found it was only necessary to purchase the control of 25 of the greatest papers. An agreement was reached. The policy of the papers was bought to be paid for by the month. An editor was furnished for each paper to properly supervise and edit information regarding the questions of preparedness, militarism, financial policies, and other things of national and international nature considered vital to the interests of the purchasers. In 1919, January of that year, Ashkenazi Jews Karl Liebknecht and Rosa Luxemburg are killed as they attempt to lead another Rothschild-funded communist coup, this time in Berlin, Germany. The Versailles Peace Conference is held to decide reparations that the Germans need to pay to the victors following the end of the First World War. A delegation of 117 Zionists, headed up by Ashkenazi Jew Bernard Baruch, bring up the subject of the promise of Palestine for them. At this point, the Germans realized why America had turned on them, and under whose influence? The Rothschilds, of course. The Germans naturally felt that they had been betrayed by the Zionists. This is because at the time the Rothschilds made their deal with Britain for Palestine in exchange for bringing America into the war, Germany was the most friendly country in the world towards the Jews. Indeed, the German Emancipation Edict of 1822 guaranteed Jews in Germany all civil rights enjoyed by Germans. Also, Germany was the only country in Europe which did not place restriction on Jews, even giving them refuge when they had to flee from Russia after their first attempted communist coup failed there in 1905. Nevertheless, the Rothschilds had held up their side of the bargain to spill the blood of millions of innocents, and as a result Palestine is confirmed as a Jewish homeland, and whilst its handover to the Rothschild takes place, it is to remain under the control of Britain as the Rothschilds control Britain. At that time, less than 1% of the population of Palestine was Jewish. Interestingly, the host of the Versailles Peace Conference is its boss, Baron Edmund de Rothschild. The Versailles Peace Conference is also used as an attempt by the Rothschilds to set up a world government under the pretext of ending all wars, which they create. This was called the League of Nations. Fortunately, not enough countries accepted it, and so soon it died.